Today, we're going to learn from an entrepreneur that spent the last 20 years growing a furniture direct-to-consumer online business that was venture funded. If you think about venture funding, most venture funded companies are more in the technology space, but Edgar Blazona, who's the president and founder of BenchMadeModern.com, found a specific niche where he wanted to grow his furniture company into a $100 million business and was able to get the VC capital needed to get this business off the ground and started. The way he approached this business for the past 20 years, learning every single facet of the furniture industry, is absolutely amazing. The stories are amazing. The ups and downs and flows of growing a business, like every entrepreneur experiences during their cycle, is just a great lesson to learn. And we look forward to you enjoying the conversation with Edgar. Edgar, thanks for joining us on today's podcast. We look forward to learning more about your background and how you've grown your business. Please, if you can, tell our audience a little bit more about what you're doing today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. BenchMade Modern is my sofa business. We're a direct-to-consumer, a DTC. We sell a custom, pretty much made-to-order, by the 5-inch increment, all the different shapes and sizes sofa. Of course, we do it incredibly quick. We do it in about 4 to 5 weeks right now, which the industry standard is like 16, even 6 months right now. It's pretty crazy times out there in the furniture world. But we make this stuff to order. We sell it online, and we sell across the country.
Okay, awesome. So take me back. Walk me through the trail. Obviously, you must have a passion for furniture and design and those kinds of things. But how did that come to? I'm going to start my own business. Can you take us maybe way back through your path as an entrepreneur as you were growing up?
Sure. So I dropped out of high school, my senior year. I started a furniture business. I kind of luckily fell into it. I, made some pieces and ended up selling them in a local store, and was kind of blown away. It was like more money than I'd ever seen, in one chunk at an early age. And I really have been in the furniture business ever since. I started a cabinet shop and, custom furniture company, at that time. I ended up closing it down. I realized that it's going to be a long, long way before I, ever get the house I wanted on a lake, or, all those crazy dreams that you have when you're young like that. And I went and worked for Pottery Barn, and back in their heyday, and this is when Pottery Barn was like the thing in town. Everyone had Pottery Barn stuff. It was quite the place to work at. And I created a bunch of problems for them, or I guess I pointed out a bunch of their problems, and it allowed me to go overseas, right? And that was my whole goal: was how do I learn what scaling a factory is like? I don't know anything about factories, but how could I see it? So I created these problems, quote unquote created, and then I told them I would go solve them. And so I went to China and Indonesia and Vietnam and all that, and I really taught these factories, how they could fix these problems. But what I was really doing was looking, at the factories and trying to really understand. And frankly, this paved the way for me to then start other businesses down the line using that same kind of model.
Gotcha. So what other businesses did you start from learning a little bit about that experience?
I left Pottery Barn and went to work for another company that basically, frankly, paid me to knock off what I was doing at Pottery Barn. We ended up selling to Target and Walmart. And while I was there, I started, creating this modern kids furniture brand, really small little niche. And I went to the owner of the company. And I said, look, I'm either going to leave and go build this company, or what I'd rather do is stay, build this company, and work on your company at the same time. And he allowed me to stay, and it was kind of the best of two decisions for him. Bought him a little time and so on, and so I built this brand, True Modern. And turns out that the modern kids business is not so recession proof. Because in 2008, when everything kind of crashed, I was left with multiple warehouses filled with inventory that no one was buying, and the bills were racking up and all that, and it was a hard time, and at that particular time, I started to make sofas, frankly, out of need. Like, I needed a sofa, and but you know what? I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, you're in the kids furniture business. You don't know anything about sofas." And so I came up with a hack, right? I started buying sofas that I designed from a custom maker at basically retail. And I would sell those exact same sofas at retail. I made no money. And in fact, I maybe even lost a little money on every sale. But what that did for me was put me in the sofa business, right? It allowed me to go out and show the next guy, hey, look, I'm firmly in the sofa business. And it literally was my way in. And the next guy was like, okay, I'll make that sofa for half, and so here I am in the sofa business today.
Wow. And how long has that been now since you've kind of
Well,
gone on your own?
that was a while back. I mean, I would say that was maybe 10, 12 years ago that I did that endeavor. And then after that started BenchMade Modern, and BenchMade Modern was a venture funded business, right? I live in the gold mine here in the Bay Area, right? There's got to be a way for me to get involved in the venture business. And so I I raised some capital. I went to go make these custom sofas by the inch, and again, no one took me serious. The venture world was like, prove it first. And so I used my true modern business to build a small factory in Los Angeles. And then I went back out to the venture community and I said, look, I can do this. I can make custom sofas, at that point by the inch in 24 hours, in as little as 24 hours.
Wow. So what's the size of your business today, BenchMade Modern? Like in terms of employee count, or like what's the size of that business today?
Well, we are, I'll get to that. We were acquired, right? So
Okay.
I built this business, and we were acquired by one of the largest upholstery businesses in the country.
Okay.
And so, you know, my employee count, when you count everybody together, is quite a bit. We're as a group, we're a big company. As a brand, the brand, the team that runs the brand, we're probably 10 people. And then we outsource, a bunch of various points of, I don't believe in actually, bringing everybody in house. I
Mm.
actually think that's not a very good business model, because I don't think it gets you the best people. So I prefer to use, freelancers, daily freelancers, not people that are, every month, or I'll call them every couple months or something like that, but like daily freelancers that maybe have a couple other clients, but that are giving a good portion of their day to me. I find that model to work best.
Wow, that's great. So there's so much to go on here. Rich, I'm curious as to where you think we should start. But from creating problems with a large company and going overseas and solving them and learning that business, to selling a business that you had kind of started with some other people, to a large enterprise, to getting to this recession in 2008 and realizing, oh my gosh, with these factories, all these things, you got to solve that problem, to then starting your own business and getting
Yeah.
so creative that you had to actually buy other things at retail to sell it at retail to make no money, just to have credibility in the game. So you can start building it to where you are now, having sold the business to a larger business,
I mean, it's a
outsourcing.
lot.
There's so many places to go with this that entrepreneurs, I think, can learn from. Rich, where do we start?
I'd love to hear about some of the problems that you identified with Pottery Barn,
Hmm.
and then what solutions you implemented for those problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, interestingly, and I think that in the manufacturing world, there's lots of things that go wrong on a pretty consistent basis. And it's, I don't think what people realize is everything that we have around us. I'm looking at your background. I'm looking at the shelves you have. I'm looking at the H in your background, right? There's an H on your wall. All of that was made by hand, right? And someone touched all of that. The cup that we have on our desk, like those things were touched by people's hands and smoothed out and colored. And so within that process, there's a bazillion things that can go wrong, right? Is the gold on the H bright enough? Is it too dull? Did we spray that thing on the wrong day and it's cloudy because there was moisture in the air? I mean, a bazillion things. And so what I did at Pottery Barn was I found things that weren't consistent, right? I found things that weren't, up to par on a daily basis. Or things from one country didn't match something that came from another country that had to be paired together, those sort of things. And so I pointed them out and kind of made a big deal of them. I dug into the return rates and figured out, like, well, why is all these, side tables returning against, a bed? One bed is made in Vietnam, the other is made in, the side table is made in China. They're two different colors, sort of. That's a problem. And so, then I went to the factories overseas and then created color cards and, a matching process and, a lighting boost so that you could read the color and all of those things that are a little bit probably more technical than everyone here wants to hear. But at the end of the day, solve the problem. But what I really was doing was, looking over my shoulder, looking to see like how many people did you have to have? What size saws and equipment and all that? Those were the kind of things that I was looking for my own personal needs, yet solving the problems for Pottery Barn.
Mm. So it was about finding things that were not consistent. And then the last thing you added on was also about finding efficiencies. I'm really curious on, for someone who started that way in Pottery Barn and really found a niche for yourself, to then come back to using freelancers versus employees.
Yeah.
It's something that those who use employees would attest. The reason I have employees is because we have consistency and we have more efficiencies. That's why we use employees. But you who have clearly deep experience in it have chosen to go the other way. Why?
Yeah, I think that there's a balance there, right? I think that there's a reason that you can, I don't know where your offices are, but you might not get the best, let's say, color specialist in the town or the city that you live in, right? I can reach out across the world. I think that, things have changed a bit in our world in that we have found a new way of doing business with the pandemic, right? People can live in different parts of the country and still work for a company. Back when I started doing this, we didn't have that, right? So I look for just talent, pure talent, and use that going first.
So a note that I made based on what you were saying, that hey, in this day and age, there's more expertise than what's limited to being within an hour drive of a headquartered office. And I want people who have more expertise and who I may be able to source in a local area. That doesn't speak to how do you maintain consistency, though, when you have freelancers kind of all over the place who have their own thoughts, have their own ideas, who may do things slightly differently. How do you maintain consistency of your product?
Well, okay, look, we're talking about two different things, I think. I think one is in the manufacturing itself, you can't have freelancers working in two different countries, right? So the consistency in the product is based on the team in the factory day in and day out. When I talk about hiring freelancers, I'm talking more about people who are maybe on the creative side, right? Who are, managing the website, or,
where you don't need consistency.
Well, you do need consistency, but you're not. There's no difference. I'm looking at the two of you, right? Two of you are clearly in two separate places, right? So how is the consistency of your podcast, right? The consistency comes from the people that you hire that are there day in and day out. So I'm not getting a different freelancer who's doing some of the creative, and then the next day another freelancer who's doing the creative, and therefore it always looks different. I'm using the same people day in and day out. They might also work for a couple different people. But see, I find this method to work much better because it keeps people inspired, right? They're not just drowning in the same consistent, as you say, process or product day in and day out. Maybe they're over here working on this. Now they're over here working on this. And then the next day they're working on me. And I find that sort of method keeps people happy, inspired, and frankly, not looking for a job elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you think about just where the workforce is going, right? Where you can hire anybody in the world pretty quickly and you can
Yes.
flex up and down with them. But the piece that you're adding in here, which is extremely important, is if you go hire somebody right now that you've never met before for a
Yeah.
project who's going to freelance for you, I'm sure that it's like a 50-50, right? It's like, okay, I hope this works.
Yes.
But if you're hiring that person for the hundredth time to work on a project for you and they become a reliable outsourced
Yeah.
freelancer, you know what you're going to get. And to build a
Yeah.
workforce of contractors like that can work for your business can really help you scale up and down real fast.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with we forget about where we live, right? There's a diamond in the rough in every city across the country, no matter how big or how small. But from the design side, there is 100 good designers in New York. There's 100 good designers in LA, San Francisco, right? So if you're not in one of those countries and one of those cities and you're
Yep.
looking for high-end design, it's tough to be in Wisconsin where your business is built from and find high-end design, right? People don't want to move to Wisconsin for that. So I think that there's a real important factor there in that people these days can live wherever and still work, effectively.
Yeah, which may be combining also two different philosophies. One is, do you allow your employees to work anywhere in the world remotely? Or
Happy
in,
to.
in this case, we're also talking about outsourced people who can work anywhere remotely. In either case, where their employees are outsourced, we are living in a world now where they can kind of live wherever they want, right?
We in the Bay Area have been playing with this for quite a while. We've all been very concerned, what's going to happen when we let everyone work from home. And there's been so many business models out of the Bay Area that have kind of played with this work from home model. And okay, now Fridays, once a month on Fridays, you can all work from home. And now it's every Friday and all that. And I think we found that it made sense. And then of course the pandemic came and it forced everyone to do that. And I think in a lot of positions, it's helping. Now, not every position, not everybody can work from home, but there are definitely core positions within a company that almost even makes more sense if you can hire from afar.
Yeah. So, Edgar, just to kind of bring us all the way to the start, right? You started your own furniture startup right out of the gate. You're like, I love this stuff. I'm going to start making some stuff, sell some stuff. Oh, I can make some money. Maybe I can just do this for a living.
Yep.
And you had an aha moment, something took place. You're like, look, I'm not going to be able to buy this crazy dream home in the future at this pace. Like, I need to accelerate. So you decide to move to corporate America and kind of accelerate the learning. You come all the way back full circle, raise some money, start your own business, and so on and so forth. What is the big learning through that? Like, where would you be today if you just stuck with your startup and continued to try and muscle through
Yeah.
versus the learnings you got by joining a larger organization, learning, and then coming back to entrepreneurism?
That's a really interesting question because I think about it. In fact, I was giving some advice to a friend who was interested in making a cookie startup, and I'm like, dude, what do you know about cookies? Like, you don't know anything about cookies, And he's like, well, I got this good idea, I got this good name, and all that. And I'm like, why don't you go get a job at a cookie place for 3 months? Like, learn a little bit about cookies, right? Understand, actually, instead of having to make it all up as you go, right? A lot of this stuff is figured out. So I don't know where I would be, right? I think that there's so much value in the longevity, right? I didn't start out to solve a problem. I'm a furniture maker. I found a problem within the furniture industry that then I went to solve versus just randomly picking a cookie company because I think I can deliver hot cookies across the country, whatever that might be, right?
Sure.
And so I think there's real value in really being, a professional or an expert in
Yeah.
your field. And I think that helped carry me forward. What I had to learn though was how to raise capital, right? I'm just a furniture dude, right? We don't have capital. There wasn't a time when you could go raise venture funding, right? Venture funding wasn't for the furniture industry, right? Venture funding was for the Googles and and these big mega brands. And then direct to consumer came along, and that kind of changed that world a bit.
Mm. Well, this is a great conversation to go. And it's interesting when you talk just for a second about all the things you learned and had to learn in order to be effective at running your own business. I mean, it's very similar. Rich is in the franchising industry, and it's either, hey, go learn all this stuff yourself, or we got the proven system that's going to, get you there a lot faster and be a lot more successful in chances of growth. But you just went to a complete area that I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into, which is, you're right. Like, when you say, hey, I have this furniture company, I raise venture funds, you're like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean venture funds? Like, did you get, somebody, friend and family wrote you a check? Or are you talking about like venture capitalists? And if so, talk to us about that process. Why did you decide to go raise capital that way? What was the process, and what does that look like if an entrepreneur is listening to this going, maybe I'm interested in doing that someday, and maybe that's not for me too, because I thought that was just for Google.
Yeah. Well, first, look, you have to decide, is your business a venture fundable business, right? Number one, right? Look, the old norm was 100 million. So we'll just work off of that. Is this business going to be $100 million business, or is it going to be what we call a lifestyle business? Still a great business. Lifestyle businesses are incredible, but can you build this business to be $100 million business? And so I grew up in the Bay Area. There's all this venture money. There's all this, everybody is growing these businesses, right? And so how could I do it? So, I created this model. We're going to open up these hybrid stores. We're going to put hybrid stores across the country. This whole kind of giant business. We called it our Starbucks plan, right? Because it was all about having these small little furniture stores in all these cities across the country. But then I had to go out and raise capital. And, that's a whole another aspect. Like, how do you reach out? How do you build a proper deck and all that? And so what I did was I listened to a particular investor's podcast, Jason Calacanis, and he has This Week in Startups podcast. And it's all about, at the time, was all about, going to him, angel investment, raising capital and all that. I listened to like 3 years back to back to back to back, and I took notes. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get him to be my first investor. I'm going to use 3 years of his words against him to use all the tricks in the trade on him to get him to be the first investor. And lo and behold, I did it. And he was my first investor. And, it's how you talk to him. Look, you want to go out and you say, you want to ask for advice, get money. Ask for money, you only get advice, right? And those were the things. There's a million other little tricks, but those were some of the things that I used against him. I gave him something first, right? I said to him, hey, you have all these great people on your show. They're always sitting in rental furniture. How about I give you a piece of great furniture for them to sit on, right? He's like, yeah, okay, great. Well, who is this guy, right? And so suddenly I was able to get in front of him, and I barely asked him anything, and he was like, I want to invest, and so that's kind of how that started.
Love the story. Let me recap what I think I heard. Right, one is, are you $100 million business, or are you a lifestyle business? And we could talk about what that means and the difference between those two in a second. You casted a giant vision, because venture capitalists are not going to participate in a vision that's too small for them. It's not exciting enough. And the last piece is, you did your research, and you did something that we learned. One of our episodes we recorded maybe a year and a half ago, Rich, if you recall, was with Manny Pata. Yes. And I can remember that quote that you just came right out of his mouth, right? You ask me for money, you're going to get advice. You ask me for advice, maybe I'll, have a liking to you and invest, and then giving first, which I love. So those are the three things I got: $100 million business, giant vision, and really learn how to approach investors. And in your case, I guess maybe, Rich, we need to reconsider this podcast could be used against us at some point in the future. But first talk to us about this $100 million business or lifestyle business, and maybe we'll attach that with the giant vision. My understanding of a lifestyle business, just to match it up against both you guys, is it's a good business. It's a profitable business. It's owner operated usually. And it, to a certain degree is the owner's job, as well as the profits of that business, and allows them to make more income. But it's what they do every day. Whereas $100 million business, the co-founder at some point may exit that business or own shares in the business or become a chairman of that business, but it grows, to a certain point that they got it to that scale, and it kind of lives longer. Is that kind of the premise?
Yeah, I would say that is correct. I would say that, the lifestyle business, you're buying a vacation home, when the lifestyle, when the business grows, right? When it becomes good enough that everyone's doing great. A venture funded business, this $100 million business, is you're not selling until it's $100 million business, right? That's what venture wants. They don't want to hear that at 25 million or 30 million or whatever that is, that you are going to sell, right? This is not about you making a personal gain. It's about them risking risking their capital in a very, very tough risky environment, right? And hoping and betting on the big play, betting on the $100 million business that then could be sold, to another, $1 billion business, so to speak, right? So I think that there's, and you have to remember that, my Starbucks plan was, we're going to be as big as Starbucks, and you have to believe in it. And if you don't believe in it, then they're going to see through that. Now, look, I didn't reach that goal, right? I didn't reach that goal. We had some tough times. It was really, really hard. And we ended up selling ahead because, we were having a tough time raising more capital. We had a good offer on the table to buy. And it was the best thing that we could do to really grow the business. And everyone got their money and made a little bit. And, we all moved on. And at the end of the day, kind of going back to that Pottery Barn era, I sold to one of the largest manufacturers in the country. What did I gain? I gained a manufacturer, right? I gained a manufacturer that was set up to do it. So now I do my job. I sell, the manufacturer makes. And that team together is perfect.
Yeah, I love that. And I certainly appreciate the differentiation between the lifestyle is actually taking the profits to have a great lifestyle, whereas the $100 million business is reinvesting their retained earnings.
Yeah, until it fails or until it becomes 100 million.
Earlier in the conversation, you had said you had a hack, you called it, and I think it's brilliance. A hack might be one word. I think you're brilliant for doing it. You designed a sofa, had a maker who built it. You bought it at retail and sold it at retail to establish credibility as being in the sofa business. And then what I just heard was this, you had listened to Jason's podcast, 3 years of it, and then came back around to use some of the techniques with him because you knew he felt they worked. And if he felt they worked, you probably buy based on them. I think you are incredibly clever. And I would love to know what are some additional stories you have across your journey as an entrepreneur that are equally clever. I think they're both entertaining and there's something to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what other things you kind of have in your back pocket that you may have talked about in the past. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I think that there's two things I can really talk about. One is, part of that Starbucks plan, that we call it, was we built this robotic sofa vending machine kind of thing. And if you go online, you do a search for BenchMade Modern robot on YouTube, you can see some early makings of this giant robotic arm that you could swipe on an iPad, you choose a sofa, the robot would go up and grab the sofa off of a giant pegboard and bring it down and put it, at your feet, and you'd sit on and touch and feel that. I decided that a love seat was enough to sit on so that you could get an idea of fit and feel of the sofa, right? And that was enough. So if I had all the love seats, different kinds on the wall, right, you could just cycle through, see what you like visually, and then sit on this love seat. We got that thing about 3/4 done, and the YouTube video that's there it's from an early, us testing it. But what that did was it gave us a press opportunity, right? And press is so important with the marketing costs that they are today. The um, Facebook and Instagram and all those advertising models, it's so expensive. The value really is in press. Everybody wants to get good press, and I'm happen to be married to a PR person, so I do have a little bit of backdoor insight on what press is. But everybody thinks that they make the best product or have the best restaurant, right? And so the press people are pounded with this. And in order to get good press, you have to have something truly press worthy. And at the time, what we were doing, building this robotic system and these hybrid stores and all that, was a different spin on it. And so that allowed us to get some good press. And you know what? Honestly, what that brought was the New York Times. And we had a front page section, in the business section of the New York Times that elevated us immensely, right? And I actually attribute the selling of the company later to that one New York Times story, because it gave us this, oh, I read about it in the New York Times. It's really hard to get in the New York Times, but it gave us just that little bit of credibility to get that one step further.
That's incredible. What did you do that was active on your part to turn this from, hey, I think this is going to be cool to the consumer, to, hey, this is going to be cool for the press? What did you do to make that happen?
Well, I think that robot had a lot to do with it, right? And there's more to it. We it's the full picture, right? So, okay, yeah, we came up with this, you could even call it a gimmick. I hate to call it a gimmick because it was actually something that we were really focused on that could solve a problem in a store. It could make what we were calling a hybrid store. It could reduce the footprint of a store from, say, 10,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet, right? Or even 1,000 square feet. And so we were really focused on that model. But I think there's a little bit more around it. And what that is that you got to have a good product, right? My funnel process, we all talk about this marketing word, the funnel, right? And we bring them in, high level, market to them, bring them to the site, and then how do we bring them down the funnel to closing them, right? So one of the things that we do is we send out this full 12 by 12 inch swatch box with giant swatches in it. There's 100 fabrics in this swatch box. It's very tactile, right? I send it second day air. It's not cheap. It's not cheap to do this, but it's a little signal to say, you know what? We're the most badass one. We're the best. And while you wait to shop around and get everyone else's swatches in an envelope or whatever it is, in this janky little thing, you always remember, oh, look, BenchMade Modern, right? It's a very tactile thing. Then you go down farther in the funnel. We send a full giant rollout sheet of paper of whatever custom size sofa that you want, right? Giant corner sectional, full rollout corner sectional. You roll out on the floor. You can sit, does my husband, can he lay between the arms and take a nap, right? Does my family fit on the cushions? While all of these things are designed to bring you down the funnel, there's something else going on here that's happening. It's creating this, oh, these people are the real deal, right? And so back to your question, when you combine that robot with some real deal tactile stuff, not some stuff you just made up on the internet, but some real stuff that you can touch and feel, I think that's the model that actually brings press and creates this level of attachment to the brand.
And in that, a couple of times in this, in the conversation, I'm getting this solving a problem. And you said that solves a problem in the store with the robot. And I can see how the way you described what you did in the funnel, you were solving problems in each case. One of the problems is a customer going out to a bunch of different stores and getting these 2x2 little swatches, right? That's a problem. So you solved that. You sent out 12 by 12 swatches and you did it quickly and you sent out hundreds of them. Another problem is the fit in the home. And somebody going out with the tape measure, and did they get it right and do the dimension? And was that the height or was that the width?
Totally.
Which one was it? And you solve that problem. You send out this rollout sheet of paper. That's one of the things that I'm hearing consistently about the things that you do is you are accurate at identifying the problem of a consumer and then creating a solution for them that they embrace. And where did you get that philosophy of identifying problems? And if you create solutions to those problems, people want it. Where did you learn that?
Well, I think that goes all the way back to that Pottery Barn era, right? Like I'm creating problems. I'm seeing problems. I'm creating problems. I'm solving those problems, right? And I think that, you know, I know where the stem of this sofa problem thing started. It started from me going to dinner parties. No joke. This is the real deal. When you're a plumber, right, and someone invites you to go to their house for dinner, shortly after dinner, they're like, "Hey, man, I got this water heater out in the garage. You mind taking a look?" Right? The same thing goes for a carpenter or whatever. When I go to a dinner party, people are like, "Oh, you're the furniture dude." Dude, I bought this piece of furniture. It sucks. Like the whole process sucked, you know? Like I went to the store, and, you know, I ordered this thing. It came 6 months later. It was broken. It wasn't what I ordered. This thing sucked, right? And honestly, getting pounded with that time and time again, I'm like, I gotta fix this. I gotta solve this. I cannot sit here at another dinner party and hear how bad your experience was. Fine, your experience at that place sucked, right? But it's not gonna suck at my place, right? And so I think it's built into this challenge, this inner challenge. And I think that comes from I didn't pick some random problem to solve, right? I solved a problem in my own industry, right? And that's where it's real, you know, it's my core, and it's something that was like a personal almost vendetta against me, that sort of thing.
Well, I'm gonna have to invite you over for dinner this weekend.
Yeah, no thanks.
John has a bunch of complaints about his furniture.
Well, you know, listen, I don't know where everybody is on this listening to it, but the idea that we can actually custom design our own with a piece of paper and see all the swatches. I'm dead serious. I'd love to get in on that because we need a couch, and it may be a good fit for us. So I'll test out the process and your funnel and give you some feedback from my perspective.
Yeah.
What's next, Edgar? What's next for you? Obviously, you're still with BenchMade Modern today, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I run BenchMade Modern, and
so, what are your goals now? Where are you trying to go with this?
you know, I think we're starting to add more products, and we're starting to build out the brand a little more. We're starting to reach more people. I think that now that we have the manufacturing side, you know, kind of tied together with the front side, now it's really a process of how do we reach more people, and so my challenges today is the marketing side. You know, how do I get out there? How do I get to more? I think that's really our biggest step, and you know, coming up with creative ways to not just buy some AdWords and try to compete on that level. I'd rather compete with creativity than just a big wallet.
So hold on a second. What's on the brainstorm board for the next sofa robot? What are some potential options? And you know what's funny is, Rich, I've been thinking about as we were hearing about the story about the robot. You know, one of our prior guests, Cameron Harold, has a book called Free PR. He was 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and he just created this massive amount of PR around junk. Yes. And was extremely successful. Wrote a book on it, and everything else. But like, obviously, you're attending some podcasts right now. But what are some other creative ideas that, and if somebody's in a different industry, may go, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm really into guerrilla marketing these days, right? I was a graffiti artist growing up, so I love all things street art, and all that. I find you know, there's some guerrilla tactics out there that are just incredible. You know, I'd love to, you know, put sofas, you know, on a stick in the park, you know, and just there it is. What is this weird sofa there sitting in a room? Those are the kind of things that we're playing with. Our tagline is rebellious luxury, right? And so we're really trying to, push that and see how far we can take that rebellious luxury type thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love the story. If people want to learn more and kind of get started with this process and join the funnel, I'm assuming they just visit the website. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Check us out at benchmademodern.com and yeah, order some swatches. You'll be in the funnel and we don't blow you up. We don't, we're not obnoxious about anything. We try to be really true to our voice and all that. But yeah, definitely come check us out there and we'd be happy to hook you up with a super sweet sofa.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all your learnings and stories. Great speaking with you, Edgar.
Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time, you guys. That was fun.
Please stick around for a few more minutes while Rich and I break down this episode.
I'll tell you what, this whole idea, John, of identifying a problem and solving it. I was just having a conversation with people earlier this morning. It was a group of 3 people who were looking at some program development and wanting their 3 programs to be able to be cohesive. And we talked about that very concept, that whatever is developed in the program that they were working on, it has to solve a problem of the people who they want to have use their program. And if it doesn't solve a problem, people aren't going to use whatever they're developing. And just what a beautiful translation over, obviously, into business is if you can identify a problem that your consumers are having and solve it, they will flock to you.
Yeah, I'm sure this has happened many times to you as well, but you meet an entrepreneur who, it doesn't matter if it's a problem in the furniture space that they can solve or a problem in the cookie space, as an example. He was going to figure out a way to do it. And for Edgar, it wasn't about traditional school and going to science and chemistry and all, the traditional school components. He had a passion for furniture and furniture making. So what he did is he went to the MBA, right? Master of Business in Furniture. And he joined these large corporate companies, got a chance to travel the world, see the problems, help solve the problems. And that really got his entrepreneurial juices where he could actually go to venture capitalists and say, I'm going to build the next $100 million furniture company. That's pretty cool. I think he could have done that in any other niche industry. He could have went there and solved those problems as well.
Yeah. And I feel like even in his stories where I said, man, that was really clever. Like he's solving problems for himself.
Yeah.
He had a problem that he knew he was in the furniture space, but at the time he was known as just being kids' furniture, not sofas. He had that problem. So he was creative then on how he would solve it. And I think it is just genius. Like, hey, I bought the retail version of my own design and sold it at retail until I could establish some credibility. Like he's not only a problem identifier, but he's a problem solver, not just for customers, but for his business also. He may actually have a future in consulting or a future in potentially marketing, the way he's talking about things.
Yeah, no question. And I'll add vision, like just incredible vision. I mean, he could have easily have started a lifestyle business in the furniture space with all these learnings and done really, really well. But instead, he cast a large vision, listened to a podcast for 3 years to figure out his strategy on how he was going to approach a VC investor. And, getting venture capital for a business that's non-tech, which he sold this furniture industry as a tech industry, direct to consumer business. That's very, very impressive. And his approach to it, to your point, I think you used a very good word, which was clever. If you're a clever entrepreneur who can see problems, solve problems, there's really no industry that you can't take by storm. And to your point on just that creative piece, right? A graffiti artist loves guerrilla marketing, is out there. Seems like the type of guy who would put a sofa on a stick in the park to create the buzz for it, to get on the front page of the New York Times as an example. That's what you need to do. Like entrepreneurs need to persevere and figure out ways. Like his road hasn't been easy. I mean, we didn't dive into how he felt in 2008 when everything he had built, he had stuff in warehouses and it wasn't going to work anymore. He had this vision with the VC company and they ended up selling a little bit earlier to another firm. Like things haven't always gone his way, I'm sure, just like every single other entrepreneur out there.
when I do some travel with Shelby, my wife, we often look up like things to do in whatever city it is. And then you have like, different landmarks and different restaurants and different things that are novel for that city. We're the type of people that would go drive by the sofa on a stick because it showed up in the things to do. And we take a picture of it. We'd come home and we'd show our parents, hey, look at this sofa on a stick thing. Like, just something like that is so creative. And speaking of creative, how about this one-liner from him? I want to compete with creativity, not having a big wallet. I don't want to compete on the big wallet. I want to compete on creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I love that. And that's the niche, right? Is kind of like, you could just be any regular sofa company. I'm sure you have sofa depots in your market where you go to. That's not who they want to be. They want to be that group. When you talked about that sales funnel, I loved it. They want to be different. They want to give a different experience, which is really where the direct-to-consumer online businesses are going to need to win. Online is maybe where you get the leads, but it's by how you service them after the fact that will keep them as a long-term customer, buying from the comfort of their home on a computer versus having to go to the store.